Welcome, everybody. I am so happy that you are here with us. My name is Kenny, and welcome to our She is Limitless podcast, where we talk about things about careers, relationships, health and wellness, and finances. Because guess what? That is all a part of life, and we all have to deal with it. The goal of this podcast is to help you get unstuck and become your unstoppable self. So, today we are going to be talking about relationships and how to strengthen them. Have you ever felt unheard or even misunderstood in your relationships? That's what we are going to be talking about today. We're going to discuss the three key elements of a relationship, what it needs to be successful, and I will also be providing you with some practical tips on how to overcome communication barriers. And so, to be clear, I'm not only talking about romantic relationships, because we have work relationships, we have familial relationships, friendships, and others. So, these elements are important regardless of the type of relationship you have. The three key elements are trust, respect, and open communication. Trust provides a safe space for open communication, which in turn builds trust. And respect allows the communication to be more effective. So if you're one of those people who feel like you're not being understood in your relationships, stay tuned to hear practical ways to overcome communication barriers. We're going to cover the importance of active listening, expressing your needs respectfully, and resolving conflict with empathy and understanding. We're not just going to discuss these elements, but I'm also going to provide ways that you can implement them today. So let's go ahead and get started. We know that communication isn't just talking, it's also about body language, it's also about listening, understanding, and helping others feel respected, or even yourself if you're the communicator. Communication also builds trust. When you're in a healthy relationship, you feel at ease and like you can share anything with that person without being judged or getting shut down. I mean, think about it. Think about that time when you genuinely felt heard, respected, and understood. How did that feel to you? How did you act? So that's the power of communication that we're talking about today. Have you ever watched those TikTok videos where it's the spouses and usually the wife is just usually going on and on and on about her day and just things that are on her mind. And he's just sitting there listening. Uh yeah, while that may be a joke and it's funny, there's more to it than just her yapping along, right? It's that the wife feels so comfortable that she could just basically do a word throw up and it's fine. That's a sign of a good relationship. You see, in those situations, she feels secure enough to be herself. This happens in my household every night. You know that period of time when your day is over, between your day being over and you getting ready to go to sleep? That period of time, that's when I catch my husband. I love that time because it's so intimate to me. It's when I see him, he's done with his day, I'm done with mine, we're getting ready to go to bed, and I'm just telling him all about the things that happened throughout my day. I'm telling him about the things that, like, my ideas, my opinions of the day. Uh, it's where I get to be goofy and playful. Like, I don't know what it is, but something comes out of me that I'm just like super goofy. Um, and it's fine because I feel so comfortable and so safe with him. I love this time. It does help us get closer. It also allows him to share his day and share his ideas. This time of the day for me is so precious that I always make sure that we get a little bit of it. And no matter how busy we are, that we get some time so that we could basically decompress by sharing our days. He also gets to share as much or as little as he wants because he's not as talkative as I am. So I allow him to share. And this is actually where we have set goals. This period of time in our day is where we have set goals, is where we talk about our future together. And I think it's really important to our the health of our relationship for us to continue to do that. Before COVID, we weren't doing this. So we were pretty distant. We hardly spoke, hardly shared about our days because we were also busy. Like, there's no time, right? It's just finish the day, relax a little bit, and then go to sleep. That's it. And then when something did come up that was important that we had wanted to share with one another, but we hadn't, it usually was just, it came out in a fight. And fighting was just a way of us expressing that we hadn't felt comfortable enough to share what was going on with one another prior to the fight because there wasn't any trust. And because there wasn't that communication or trust, I was consistently making up stories in my head about what could be going on and what he could be doing. Oh, and I'm sure your brain does the same thing, but mine's pretty creative. And it was making up all kinds of stories. And that was more of a reflection of my trauma and things I had lived than who he was. So I was seeing him from a different lens because, again, there wasn't communication. And I didn't really know him as deep as I know him now. So I went off of what I knew other men had done in my life. So slowly I began to understand that he had a different style of communication than my own. And not only that, but he also didn't have writers writing the script of his life of what to say, how to say it, when to say it, like they do in romantic movies. Come on. I know I'm not alone in this. A lot of us think that relationships have to be that perfect relationship like it is in those romantic movies. The reality is that hardly happens. And even if you are in this great relationship with great communication, and it does look like a romantic movie, does it happen every single day? If it does for you, damn girl, you lucky. But if it doesn't, welcome to the real world. So I learned that his communication style was different than my own, and I learned to see when he was communicating and how. You know, one thing was um his apologies. I'm Latina and I know this because this is how we apologize with food. So he understands that and that's how he would apologize to me. Yes, he would also verbalize it, but the first part is here's some food. And then I knew, okay, fight over. Um, but those are things that you just learn as you gain trust and respect for one another. You know, at work, how they give you those personality tests? like the Gallup five top strengths, and then there's that Enneagram test where it's like I always say it's the alphabet test because it's like I'm an I, J, whatever. I can't memorize them. But yeah, those people, those type of tests, right? At work, they give us those, and we tend to build an environment around that, or at least from my experience, that's how it was. So at work, I would apply these skills and these communication tactics, but I wasn't applying them at home. I had even read Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, and I still didn't get it when it came to personal relationships. We just, because I don't know, I just felt like, well, this is a work thing, so I'm gonna do it at work, but not here. Um, but once I realized that it just applies to any kind of relationships, it made such a big difference. So at work with my employees, I need to address them based off of their top strengths. We did Gallup. So if someone had a futuristic top as one of their top strengths, then I would talk to them about long term goals because that's what was on their mind. If someone had woo as their top strength, I made sure to compliment them on their work or even just in what they were wearing. This actually helped build trust in that relationship. They knew I cared enough about them that I could address them in a way that resonated with them best and that I could adjust to different people's different styles and not treat everybody exactly the same. But I wasn't doing that in my personal relationships. I didn't know what their top strengths were. I didn't know what worked, what didn't. And I'm not telling you, go ahead and start testing everyone. Do the Enneagram test. I mean, it is free online and I'm not getting paid for that. But if you want to do it, you can. It's the personality test. Gallup type strengths is also available. You can if you wanted to, but you don't have to. All you have to do is you got to get to know someone and pay attention to them from their lens, not yours. That's so key. Just because you see something in a certain way doesn't mean they do too, right? So once I realized that, I started changing the way I responded to my husband. And instead of pressing him to tell me something because that's when I wanted to know or hear about it, I just let him take his time. And now I always tell myself, if I see he's in a mood, I'm like, let it go. Don't press. Because I was that annoying wife that was like, tell me, what's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me now. But sometimes people don't want to tell you right there. Maybe they're in their head about something, right? So I just give him space and I'm like, when he's ready, he'll come tell me. And sometimes he does, and other times he doesn't. And guess what? If he doesn't, then it wasn't for me to know. So really pay attention to what lens you're focusing on. Are you communicating from just how you interpret things, or are you helping the other person um also communicate in the language that they understand, that feels familiar to them? So we have to realize that relationships for everyone is based off of the individual. This also applies to kids. So if you're a parent, you already know this. Your kids have different personalities. They also communicate differently. I always tell my siblings, um, we were raised by four different parents. It's four of us, and we were raised by four different sets of parents. And not because they were actually different people, because it's the same mom and dad. But I got the 20s version of a married couple, while my brother got the mid 30s version of a divorced couple. And my other sisters, they got everything in between, right? So different styles. My dad was super strict with me. I mean, I was reading when I was 3 years old. I knew my multiplication tables up to the 12 when I was in first grade because I was the only child. They had all the energy, and they were in their early 20s, to put on me, right? All the energy to help me grow and all that stuff. By the time my brother came along, right? It's, oh, you can fend for yourself. They relied a lot on me too to help them. And the situation was so different. When I was young, we lived in El Salvador, and my mom was in a university, my dad was had his career. When we were here, and my brother and they were in their mid 30s, we were in the US, which was economically different for our family. They had to work more, and yeah, they relied more on me um, to help with the younger ones. So different parenting styles develops different children. And plus, our DNA already comes with different sets of skills and ways of communication as well. So some of your children may be really easy to talk to, while others not so much. It also has to do with age. Uh, I have two nephews who I helped raise, and I have a bonus daughter that I've had since she was 5. She's now 18, and my oldest nephew is 17. The other was 12. So my observations between 8 and 10, my daughter and oldest nephews, oh, they were chatterboxes. We drove to LA one day with my nephew, 6 hours drive. It's a 6 hours drive. He did not stop talking the whole 6 hours. Now I can be driving him a 30-minute drive. I might get 3 to 4 sentences out of him, right? Depending on how he's feeling. Uh, my youngest nephew, though, his brother, he's always been the quiet type. No matter the age, you ask him one question, he responds with one answer. So I stopped asking him, "How was your day?" Because parents, "How was your day?" means good. Okay, there's no more to that, right? So I thought I was getting creative, and I asked him, "So name one interesting thing that happened to you today." Again, he will find one word responses. And so sometimes I probe, sometimes I don't, because I also want to respect that, his boundaries. If he doesn't feel like he needs to give me more, then that's fine, because I don't want to press so that our trust is broken. The other day, my nephew, the oldest one, 17, he was being a normal teenager, right? And he got into an argument with his mother. So the next day, I wanted to understand his perspective and provide guidance to him. So that next time, things didn't escalate as much, right? Me trying to give advice. Oh, he immediately shut me down. He's like, "No, no, I don't want to talk about it." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And I was like, "No, we're going to talk about it now." And he's like, "No, I don't want to talk about it." My natural reaction, same as when my husband would do this, was to push and push until I got it out of them. But this time, I've grown. And so I just said, "Okay, when you're ready to talk, we'll talk." Because again, I didn't want to break the trust. Remember, the communication is both ways. And just because you feel like I need to get this resolved right here, right now, doesn't mean that it's the same for the other person. And by you pushing, it's breaking that trust, and you're not respecting their boundaries. And remember, trust, respect, and open communication leads to a healthy relationship. So I just paused and I said, "All right, whenever you're ready, I'm here to talk." Sure enough, a week later, he apologized for not being ready to talk to me, even though he didn't really need to, but he respects me enough to say, hey, I apologize. And then we discussed it. And our relationship is intact. With him, with that nephew, I can talk about things that are going on in the world. I can talk about his career aspirations and just get into deep conversations. When my daughter, she's more into her baking and telling me about what's going on in her friend circle, which is great because parents, teenagers, right? They don't really share, but I allow them to express themselves in whatever way they want to express themselves without judgment. It's hard sometimes because you have to decide whether, okay, is this parenting time and guiding them back, or is this sit and listen time, right? And sometimes it's sit and listen, but then address it at a different time so you can provide guidance in for that situation. Whereas my 12-year-old nephew, he's just like, I just want to play video games. I don't really feel like talking. Okay, so we'll respect that boundary. As he gets older, I'm sure he'll open up more. But right now, that's where he's at, and it's okay. So when conflicts come up, as you heard, conflicts do come up, it is important to allow the other person to fully express themselves in a respectful manner, right? When conflict happens, that's your opportunity to strengthen the relationship. And it's such a crucial moment because if not done properly, you can actually break the relationship. The trust can be gone. And we all know once trust is gone, it's so difficult to get back. So, when addressing a conflict, remember to use I statements. This avoids placing blame on the other person and acknowledge their perspective. If you don't fully understand what they're saying, you can use terms like what I'm hearing you say is, or help me understand. Also, if they're saying something that you do not fully agree with, but you partially agree, I hear what you're saying. Have you considered? Right? It's always I because you don't want to place the blame on others. Another thing too is stick to the topic at hand. Don't start to make the laundry list of all the things that they have done. And when you did this, and when you did that, and when you no, stick to what is going on right now to solve that conflict. Another thing to also be mindful of when communicating with someone is respect their time, respect the fact that they're communicating with you. I had a manager that would say, oh, let's meet. Okay, great. Let's meet. Yet their full attention wasn't on me. It was, oh, hold on, because they had to respond to an IM. Or, hold on, somebody just walked in. Somebody else had walked in. And I'm standing there sitting, just waiting. So respect others people's times as well. Avoid distractions. Sometimes we're so good at this at work, right? Because we're being, let's be honest, it's because we're being held accountable to a certain professionalism. At home, who's there to hold you accountable? Yourself. Your kids, your spouse, your friends deserve as much of your respect as your colleagues and coworkers. Avoid scrolling through that phone or watching TV when you're having a conversation with them. Really focus on what is it that they're saying and in that conversation. Sometimes it's difficult because there's so much going on, right? But it's so important to build those strong relationships that you are fully committed to that conversation when it's happening. So, to wrap it up, remember to listen from the other person's perspective. If somebody doesn't want to talk about a certain topic or something, respect that boundary, but let them know that you're there to talk openly when they're ready, and be fully present in the conversation. I hope this has helped you, and I cannot wait to hear all about how you put what you've learned today into action in your day to day relationships. So please feel free to add that to the comments. Tell me what relationships you're going to be working on and what you plan to achieve from that. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your week. Goodbye.